Welcome to Three Devs and a Maybe, the podcast series for beginner web developers and general web enthusiasts. Now, introducing your show hosts, Michael Budd, Fraser Hart, Lewis Caines, and Ed Mann.
Good evening. Hello, folks, and welcome to Three Devs and a Maybe, the show for web enthusiasts, PHP newbies, anyone interested in anything web, really. I already know what you're thinking. Where are those golden northern tones of our usual host this evening? He's sadly absent. We'll probably get on to the whys and wherefores in a bit, but sadly, Michael Budd isn't with us this evening. And I'll tell you what else. We don't know Fraser Hart either. But I will tell you who is here.
Half a pod.
My good friend, fellow podcast, co-host this evening, I guess.
It is.
Ed the Player Man. Hi, Ed.
I haven't heard that in a while. Thank you, sir. I'm very good, mate. Yeah, we are the ones who are dedicated to the game, you know?
We're the only ones here this evening. I'll tell you what, that little intro then, I think I rehearsed it like 15 minutes ago and it went so much better then.
Oh, no, you sounded good. You sounded good. Who needs Bud? Only joking, Bud. Yeah, I'm really good, thanks, man. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Been busy.
Yeah, it seems like a long time since we last spoke.
But just like you, Ed, I always make sure that I make time for these podcasts, but,
Absolutely. Well, you know what? You have to put in the time and the effort, to get the results.
Exactly.
Some of us, think we could just skip to the end.
I think it's pretty fair, Mike's the only one here that's been here every week, so it's only fair that he gets a week off, and the poor guy is so busy, isn't he?
That's it. He's so rammed with work, because he's got the combination of not only real work, but then also uni work and stuff, and I'm sure baby stuff to deal with, so...
chuck a pregnant wife on top of that. And,
he's got everything, hasn't he, really? And it's surprising that he's still been able to do this for so many weeks, but yeah.
Having said that, Mike, that's still no excuse. I'm
Absolutely.
very...
We would make the time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was skiing last week, so that's fair enough.
You're like James Bond,
Well,
exactly. This is the thing with skiing. So you can actually ski, because I'm so jealous. I really wish I could ski.
Well, I've been a few times. I get better kind of every time I go. I'm certainly no. I can't think of. I was thinking.
Can you put it anyway? The Tiger Woods of skiing is
Tiger Woods of skiing.
The LeBron James of skiing.
Zabriggan, was that one years ago? When I used to watch Ski Sunday, that's the name that always stood out.
Ski Sunday? God,
do you remember that?
Yeah, back in the day.
Back in the day, what a show that was.
Yeah. Oh, did you enjoy the Olympics? Because obviously the skiing was on that, so... Did you try and practice any of the moves?
No, to be honest, the only thing I saw to do with the Olympics at all... I did watch our local girl, Lizzie Arnold. I watched that. I just watched that online. But the only other thing that I saw to do with the whole thing was the Gay Mountain advert that Channel 4 did. Did you see that?
No, what was that?
I'll put it in the show notes. It's not for words to explain. It's for the eyes to see. It's very, very funny. And just imagine what Vladimir Putin's response may be when he saw it. That's all I'm going to say. Without
definitely put that in the show notes then.
Yeah, without going down any dangerous roads.
You'd have done one of those.
Yeah, but anyway, so that's my. I'll be honest, I've got no idea where Fraser is.
Fraser's still doing his floristry. Well, I think he's actually really doing he's doing like all the he has to learn so much stuff before he can get on the boat and actually do all the stuff next. Because I suppose it's this year actually. Wow.
He's preparing for his big row, is he?
Yeah, he's like learning how to like navigate and stuff. Though to be honest with you, I'm like, if you haven't got GPS, well, you can have GPS, and if you don't have GPS, you're screwed anyway.
I was going to say, isn't that what Columbus did, or didn't do actually?
Oh dear, but so he's off doing that. Mickey's off doing work, and me and you just sitting here chatting. So it's a hard life.
I guess we should point out at this stage, this show does come with a disclaimer. We had a kind of a loose format for talking about frameworks this week when we thought we might have a bit more of more people will hear, but as you know, it's just me and Ed. We thought this week that maybe we'd just hit the record button, start yabbering, and just see where it goes.
That is it. And I suppose the thing is like, we don't have to really explicitly say it, but implicitly say, as it's only us two, I'm sure it will end up some tangents where that's the beautiful thing with Mickey hosting. He normally is able to get it and guide it back on target. So it'll be interesting to see.
He's the glue.
He's the glue.
I'm the opposite of glue. I'm the white spirit of podcast hosting.
No, you're the Cronenberg, sir.
Oh, that sounds good. All right, I'll take that. So anyway, Ed, how's... Christ, we haven't spoken... I wasn't here last week, so I missed the show, which I thought was great. You guys did a good one last week.
Thank you.
especially the quiz.
Oh, the quiz. Well, we had a brilliant email from that, which I'm sure we'll get into a little later on. But
Yeah, I thought I'd read that out in a minute. But I just want to formally say that you definitely deserve that point back that you were docked.
Thank you.
I was actually listening and I shouted at my screen.
Thank you. Well, that is very kind of you. That is very kind. Yeah, I did feel like I was cheated, you know?
Yeah.
I think the odds were stacked in my favour. The game was rigged. I don't think Michael Budd likes me. I think that's the real crux of it, you know? So we can get a movement going, you know, the ed deduct minus point. No, that makes no sense. But the ed movement, movement, hashtag ed movement,
the ed revolution.
Ed revolution. I like that. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, how has your week been? What have you been up to since I last spoke to you? Whenever that was.
Wow, it does seem like it's been pretty good actually. Yeah, man. I've been carrying on with the freelance stuff. Not really much going on there other than just plodding along, coding each day. I suppose the interesting thing actually at the moment is I'll be able to play with my Raspberry Pi. I bought one a couple of years ago, but it's one of those things where you start playing with it a little bit and you're like, oh, that's fancy, maybe install a lamp stack on it, and then you're just like, well, what else am I going to do with it? Because I've got a full size spec computer here. What do I need with it? But yeah, it's like have you ever played with a Raspberry Pi?
I've eaten one, but I can honestly say I've never. No, actually, where we used to work before, I remember our boss bringing one in one day, and
he went Raspberry Pi crazy, where he literally bought like 10 of them or something and tried to make a cluster out of them. So yeah, that was a.
But I didn't want to seem really uncool by saying to him like, okay, what's that? Is this some kind of new light for the office or something? Before I realised what it was.
Well, it is a bit. I mean, it does look a bit, doesn't it? It's so like underwhelming, really, thinking that is actually a computer. It's it's just a computer and a chip, really. And it's got everything you need, and it's got enough power. I mean, the thing that sold me with it at the moment is the fact that you can do HDMI 1080p out, so you can do full HD out of it. And I don't think I've spoken on the podcast actually. It's last couple of weeks I've been setting up a media center.
Oh, blimey!
So I've got a old like net top box. It must be like 09 or something. It's a quad core, so it's not too bad. 4 gig of RAM and stuff. And I hooked up my Drobo to it, and a Drobo. I'm not sure if it's a Drobo. Not a Drobo. No. So Drobo is like a RAID, which is essentially, it's just like, the idea is you have redundancy. So you have your hard drive space, but if one of the hard drives dies, you have a rack of hard drives. So I've got 4 hard drives in my Drobo, and you can put them in, and you say, if one of these hard drive fails, it will automatically be able to solve itself out. So it's got redundancy on each layer. So if that dies, if one hard drive dies out of it, you're okay, and you can just slot in another drive, and then boom, you're back, back up to full health. And yeah, so I've got a 4 terabyte, like, Drobo, redundant, and then I've also got my net top box, and I installed my good friend Paul Bowden, I don't know if he's listening to this, but he convinced me when I went round his house a couple of weeks ago, the Xbox Media Center, which is again a little bit misleading because it's not only for the Xbox anymore. So the Xbox original was basically just a full PC that was just made into a game console. That was how lazy Microsoft were back then. and these people were able to hack it and make an Xbox Media Center out of it. And it's essentially just like the Windows XP Media Center, like any of these media centers, but it's very good, awesome, and so I've got that set up to my computer, my TV and stuff, and being able to put all my content on and everything, and it's been pretty gravy actually. Yeah, quite interesting. And then actually going on to the Raspberry Pi is the fact that so it's all stored and it's playing in my room, but in the living room we currently don't. It would be nice to be able to stream it, because you can actually stream, like, you can use DHCP, which is just like this pretty much over network, being able to stream the content and stuff. And I'm accumulating quite a lot of content throughout the year, so like music and stuff, and movies and TV shows, all legally, of course, for iTunes. And I thought to myself, well, let's see if the Xbox Media Center, because there's a version called Raspberry MC or something that this 19-year-old kid made. I say a kid, but this guy made, and it's quite amazing. And it's just, you whip it, you make a SD card with it on, install that, and then you've got Xbox Media Center on a Raspberry Pi, and it streams it fine. So we've got this little box in the living room, being able to stream my music and TV shows and everything, and it's pretty sweet.
So let's take this back to basics then with this Raspberry Pi, okay? Because I'm still pretty much none the wiser on how it actually works. So what do you actually do with it then? Do you plug it into your existing computer, or?
So essentially all it is just a computer on a chip. So it has a couple of USB ports. It has a HDMI out. It has a phono out, so video out, so you can just do your normal video out. And essentially what you do is plug in a USB, I think it's micro USB, that powers it on. All the actual storage and stuff that you actually installed your operating system on is in an SD card. And it's essentially
okay.
it's essentially just this, yeah, it is just a computer on a chip, and they're so cheap. The fact that I think it's like $25 or something, and I got mine for like 30 quid. And it's amazing that they can sell these things. And actually, one of those things was there's a program that they release with it, because some people, because it's made for like hobbyists and enthusiasts and really for kids. That's why, obviously, the funny thing with this was it was made for education for kids, and the first people to buy it were all the geeks. So there wasn't enough for all the students and stuff. It's like, oh yeah,
That's why I don't have one. You see,
yeah, exactly. You were being nice, you know. You're like, no, the kids need these. But
I need to see one in action, I think.
Well, what I'd do is I'd have to send like a picture or something, you know, showing you what it looks like and stuff. And it's so cool though, because they've made like this little installer called Noobs, but it's like all it is essentially just a Raspberry installer bootloader that allows you then to say, which operating system you want to install. And because it's open source, a load of people have made operating systems for it and stuff. And yeah, you can go through that instead of having to do a DD copy and do all this funky stuff to get it actually onto the Raspberry Pi. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's quite amazing that, you know, I mean, that's more powerful than than a computer we had probably in the mid 1990s, and you're getting it for like 30 quid.
I feel like I'm like majorly behind the times here. You know, I'm using I've got a Windows PC upstairs, fairly old one. I've got a MacBook laptop, a MacBook Pro laptop, and an iPod, and that's pretty much what I spend most of my days on. I'm usually on one of those.
Your MacBook, you know, that makes you cool though, so I won't worry about it, mate. You know, the MacBook is. If you just said Windows PC, then we may have a problem. That would be when we're looking at you like, oh dear.
Yeah, I talk gibberish quite a lot of the time. Quite often, not actually hearing what my brain's saying. I just end up saying it anyway. So cool. Well, it sounds like a busy week. How's your project going?
And yeah, not too bad actually. Yeah, I've had a lot with message queues this week. A lot of message queues and playing around and reconfiguring Sphinx, which has been quite interesting.
Okay, yeah.
A message queue. I don't know if you know what message queues are.
This is something that I think Laravel's been focusing on a lot.
Yeah, that's actually
good stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty good time actually, because essentially all it is the idea that, you know, like an email, you know, when you send a request, you know, like say someone signs up, you don't. What we normally do is inside that request that they actually send, we also automatically send the email. But what happens if a lot of people are requesting sending email at the same time? Then, you know, there's going to be a bottleneck on the server. So what you do instead is you say, okay, make a message and add it to this message queue. And in the background, these emails would get sent off, you know, saying successfully signed up and welcoming and stuff. And the user would get an immediate response back. So it's kind of splitting it off and everything. You do a lot of, and it's quite nice because it abstracts away a lot of the problems that you may get with, like, you know, I have to worry about, you know, checking that this has been sent and stuff. It does all that stuff, you know, so if it failed to send, it will add it back onto the queue. So it's quite cool.
Yeah, that sounds good. It's anything to kind of speed the server up.
Absolutely,
definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how's your project going?
It's going all right, actually. It's gone through the first phase. And my boss went and met with the client last week while I was on holiday, which was unfortunate. I would have loved to have gone up there. It would have been great to actually demonstrate this thing I've been working on.
Yeah,
for the
show
past
it off, wouldn't you? Yeah. Was
it good?
3 months? Was it good feedback though?
Yeah, very good feedback.
That's always good.
They liked it, so I've just been given a couple more things to build onto it, which I've kind of there now. But one of the things that my boss asked me to build for it was like a media library.
Oh wow, that sounds like a lot of work. Yeah.
Well, it's a thing that WordPress.
Hey, WordPress!
But it is a useful feature. But it's basically an easy access to everything you've ever kind of uploaded through your website, so whether it's PDFs or images or anything like that. So you can just scroll through those and then like reuse them again wherever you want, or rather than having to look all the way through your computer. I've just kind of built this nice pop-up window that appears where it just shows thumbnails of all the images and the PDFs and stuff, and they can just literally tick on that, and a couple of features there to get a bit more information about the file if you want it, or you can just select it straight in and then hit update for the form to update the media. So that's it's good. Cool. It needs a bit of sort of organisation within it, like into folders and stuff like that, so it's a bit easier to navigate. I haven't quite got to that yet, but no, I mean, other than that, yeah, it's quite nice. So
how is it using your framework? I suppose that's the real question.
Yeah, the framework's been good. Well, that's the other thing that I've been doing this week. I've had a predicament which we could discuss a little bit on here actually, and then we'll look at it properly afterwards, if that's all right. Cool. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm now I've kind of finished with most of the stuff that I need to do. I mean, we're still awaiting content for the site, so a website's always tricky when you haven't, you need
because you're using your own fake, your Lorien Lipson text and stuff, which isn't the real content, and yeah,
I have got pictures of Ian Botham and Donald Duck all over it at the moment. Those are my go-to.
Those are your go-to thanks. I love it. Yeah.
What about you? Do you have any anything like that?
What do I normally do? Well, actually, no. That one thing actually is interesting. I tell you what I do now. I used to just get a random picture online of cheese, which is obviously a very good one. But now I use it was an idea that we had when we were one of the developers we did when we worked together and stuff, and he used like these images of just images of like numbers. So he had like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and stuff. But it's very good for ordering and stuff, testing ordering and uploads and stuff, because you could then check to make sure that when, obviously I uploaded this one first, so it should be above, etc. So that was quite a cool way. So that's what I do at the moment. I've just got like this, like pretty much just, I think it's like 20 just different images of like actual numbers that I upload, and then being able to use that to reference and stuff.
That sounds cool. I should come back to the cheese comment. This is a phenomenon that both Ed and Mike introduced me to in our previous job.
I think I sadly brought it up, was the one to bring it in as well, which is kind of embarrassing.
I fully behind this. I think that cheese it's the ultimate debug cheese word, isn't it?
It seems to be, and and I don't know why.
Unless you're on like, I don't know, edam.com. If you're echoing cheese and you want to find out where you're, there's a 99.9% chance that it's not going to say cheese anywhere else in your code.
I should really have just said that. That's a very clever way of working. Yeah, I looked at every piece of text that I was using from years and years, of people's sites, and I found out that cheese was a very unique word that never got hit. So I decided, that would be the word to search for and stuff when I get responses back.
I tried beans once, didn't work. Didn't have the same effect.
Cheese
so
and beans.
I'm staying with cheese. Cheese is awesome.
Cheese is the way to go, sir.
Yeah, so I think that's now now I've finished with that stuff. I'm kind of onto a bit now where I'm going back over some of the old code, trying to do a bit of refactoring. And
isn't that the best / annoyingest / hardest job ever, where you're like trying to work out what you did?
It is when you get a certain amount down the road with it, and then you think, oh Christ, now that's there and now that's there. Right, now I've got to figure out where I need to change this and this. And this is where I think I must have been doing something right along the way, because I'm not having to change a lot of code, to change the whole website. So that's cool.
That definitely shows design decisions at the beginning were definitely well laid out. Okay, yeah. So now I guess pretty good time to actually do the tweets of the week, which surprisingly I actually have some tweets of the week, and they're actually from this week, unlike the other ones which seem to be years ago. And the one big one this week actually that I found was from a Christoph H. Can't remember what H is, but anyway, mysterious. And it's called Virt PHP. And essentially, it's the virtual manager, environment manager, similar to virtual-env for Python. So, talking about Python again, guys. But the idea about it is to be able to separate different environments in your actual on one computer, and let's say like, this project, I want to have this environment, and it has these PEAR repositories. It has this version of PHP with these extensions. It uses these composer packages, which in a sense we already have, but you can have like global packages and stuff, and you're able to activate that environment in a command line in the actual terminal, and they'll be able to use that, and it kind of, as I say, it isolates it, but without having to go through all the problems and all of the hassle of installing a virtual machine or any of that stuff. So it doesn't have all that bottleneck. It's still actually using the same machine and your primary machine and your primary operating system, but it's using the idea that the way it works is quite clever in that it activates this script that then says, oh, by the way, if you actually run PHP, I really want you to run this version of PHP. And it's using this, what Christoph actually, I think the reason why he actually tweeted it was because it's using his PHP environment and PHP build scripts, which he actually is able then to say, okay, I want you to build this version of PHP and store it locally for this user to use. So it's not system-wide PHP, but it's only for this version, per person can use this version of PHP.
Yeah,
and it's very cool. It's very cool, and it's a GitHub repository, Virtual.php, and it's very similar to virtual environment in Python. And I can definitely see myself using it for small projects and stuff, which just require me to say, oh, it'd be really good if I could test this in, maybe PHP 5.3, and I just want to quickly whip up and have a version of Python 5.3. And then, maybe install this PEAR extension, PEAR, plugin extension, and also these actual Perl extensions, which are the actual extensions for the PHP itself.
Awesome. Yeah, I say stick that in the old show notes. And I haven't used Python a massive amount myself, but
the reason why you need it in Python, in the Python world, is because unlike Composer, because Composer, the nice thing about Composer is when you know this, because when you're installing stuff in Composer, it actually installs it in the vendor directory inside your actual project you're in at that time, doesn't it?
Yes.
Which is great. It seems like, I'm wasting all this space. And you can also do it globally, but you have that specific to be able to say this is this project. And the great thing about doing that, of course, is then I know what version of this library I'm using. It works for this project. In the world of Python and in the pip, which is their like equivalent of Composer, and also easy install, they don't have the idea of being able to install it locally. They install it globally all the time. So if you update, like an example is there's a HTML scraper called Beautiful Soup, and if you update that, it's a great name, yeah. If you update that though, you're updating it for every project that's on that system, which is fine, locally and stuff. Maybe you're using virtual machines, but if you've got a server that you're sharing, maybe this project needs this version, needs version 2 of it, while this one needs 3. Especially if you're running around with different versions of Python as well. It's then great to be able to say virtual environment, activate, I'm in this environment for this project, and it will then and it will actually work around the fact that, okay, there are global stuff, but really I'm going to be using my local versions instead, which is quite cool. So it's quite nice to bring it into the PHP world and just see if it sticks and if people start using it a lot. And yeah,
I'll be interested to have a look at that.
It's just nice that PHP has, shiny new things that we can play with.
You have to wonder where the name Beautiful Soup came from.
Beautiful Soup. Well, yeah, it's all these people. Well, we're developers, aren't we?
Do you know what I think it is?
I
think it's the same situation. Literally, when I was driving home tonight, I was thinking, right, I need to come up with a name for like my framework. To like, what's it called? I need to give it a cool name. And I was literally like,
thinking,
can't think of anything.
Super
I was looking out the car window. I was like, leaf, tree, fence. Mac, that could work. So I reckon that whoever named that was looking at Beautiful Soup.
And he was just thinking, maybe it's a really, ill day, the person's ill, and he's like, oh, this soup's so beautiful, there you go. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if you're a fan of the band called Bowling for Soup.
I've not heard much of their stuff, actually.
Well, it's great stuff. But anyway, they named themselves, I think they had like 3 hats, and they just picked, they had like a certain word, and then they literally just picked out of the hat these 3 words. And
I might do that. I might. That's a brilliant one. I think it needs to be something random, doesn't it?
Has to be something. Bowling for Soup. What a name! Beautiful Soup. Laravel, Code Igniter.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Give me 2 numbers.
2 numbers right now.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh right. How big between? What was the range?
I don't know. 1 and 20.
Okay, I would like number 5, please, and number 15.
Number 5 and number 15. Right. I'm just going to grab the first book that I grab hold of.
Oh, here we go, on the podcast, live.
50 Shades of Grey. When did she get... Oh, no, hang on.
Oh, dear.
No, I ain't joking.
We missed your jokes last week. We did.
Yeah. All right, Ed, I've got a piece of paper in front of me. Give me a number between 1 and 10.
1 and 10. Right, I want number 3 and number 8. Let's distribute that a little bit, yeah. Number 3 and 8, please, sir.
5, 6, 7, 8. 4 new. That doesn't work, does it? It was a good idea at the time, but it didn't work.
It would have been great. We were recording it and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Anything. I reckon we could maybe talk a little bit about Composer. Just a very, very brief.
Yeah, well, actually, I suppose it's a good thing. Obviously, we was doing a bit of a random one, and it's linked to the command line, I suppose. Actually, it's the Composer's a dependency manager, really. I mean, in the world of Ruby and Node, Ruby's got Ruby gems. Node's got npm, which is their Node package manager. Python's got pip. And then, Perl's got cpan, and we had PEAR, the PHP extension application repository, which was awful, if we're going to be honest with you. It didn't work very well.
This was before my time, I think, wasn't it?
You're luckily you didn't have to deal with this, and it stopped people from... in a sense, what a dependency manager does is it takes away the pain of having to... What we still do in the web game a little bit is just copy source code from one project to another. A library. It's like, oh, I've got this library, I'll just copy that to it. It puts a version on it using Git and stuff like this, where it allows you to say, I want this version of this library, and it will download it for you. But in a sense, it's great for like when you're doing it, actually, you're uploading it to a Git repository or version control, is that you just have to upload, in the case of Composer, the composer.json file, which then has this definition in it, which then someone else can just literally go composer.install, and boom, all they get is the exact environment that you, as a developer, wanted it to be when you were developing.
Yeah, I mean, basically, something which we could elaborate on was what we mean by dependency management.
Yeah, so
or dependencies.
So dependencies are just the libraries that you use. Like I
Yeah.
suppose Laravel was a dependency. Swift Mailer, if I want mail, is a dependency. PHP, I suppose you could even call is a dependency, really, but I suppose it's because it's the language we've got that already. But yeah, it's these libraries that you use that you depend on, in quotes. That's not your own code. That's from another. And nowadays, it's very much this page of do not repeat yourself, and also it's the idea of rewriting your own stuff. You just keep rewriting. Reinventing the wheel. Sorry. So it's very beaten into us not to reinvent the wheel. Though obviously we had a discussion about that a couple of weeks ago, frameworks and stuff, where it turns out to be quite a good idea in that case, especially for learning. But in the case of production code, it's good to know, right, this library is heavily developed, it's heavily been worked on, it's heavily tested, and there's a lot of documentation online for it. I'm just going to depend on this library to do this functionality for me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've probably been the biggest one saying again, I try not to use libraries wherever possible. But whenever I do use libraries, I do tend to go through Composer because it is the easiest way to get hold of those libraries. All you literally need to do, as Ed says, is you go onto packages.org, and that's where all the repositories are listed. And there's a nice simple search thing. And one library that I do use, and I'll probably forever use when I use a similar jQuery plugin occasionally, there's quite a few out there for Google Maps, but it's such a nightmare API to work with. That
You love that API, don't you?
I do. There's probably JavaScript developers out there going, "What's the problem? It's fine." But I mean, I find it nice and easy. I mean, that is one library that I do use, and the other beauty of it is obviously once it goes into your vendor directory, all you literally have to include is a vendor autoload file, and then those libraries are available to you wherever you are.
Yeah, that's it. And also you can, so that's it, because with the old SPL autoload and stuff, which is the way that we get around the fact that we used to just do includes and requires all the time, and it's the idea that that if you say, oh, this is where you'll find these dependencies. Like very similar to like Java and stuff, where you can say, oh, I want this class. It will look in here and say, oh, is there a class that meets this name? If so, require it automatically, which is better than what we used to do. And also in the the CodeIgniter world, which is you have to load everything. You have to preemptively load stuff, which can be bad, because it's obviously a bottleneck, of having to load all this stuff beforehand, even if you're not going to use it. Packages, that's the thing, because packages all got it spot on, and they did copy really Ruby gems and npm, but for the right reasons, because they were just very good, very good repositories for what they are. And I mean, it's interesting because there was in CodeIgniter world there was something called Sparks. Get Sparks. I remember
you made a little library for that one.
Yeah, well, I made a couple that I uploaded to that, and it was in a sense it was what a dependency manager specifically for Laravel, and also not Laravel, sorry, CodeIgniter, because there was also one before version 4, which then heavily emphasised using Composer.
This is Laravel packages.
Laravel bundles, yeah. So
that's it.
So they had the bundles, and this is it. They all have their own names, but now we all use Composer, and the idea then is you'll stick to the PSR standards and you work around this using the auto loading and stuff, etc. And the nice thing about using the Composer as well is it supplies you with a framework of understanding how to auto load files, because not only can you auto load their own libraries, you can also auto load files that you want. You can auto load, so you can just do simple includes inside of the JSON file saying also include this, which is what I do quite a bit in my blog. And then also auto-load your own classes and stuff that you want inside, say, I'll auto-load this directory, and it will automatically do it for you. And it's quite nice to see the code and be able to work out, that's how SPL works, because it's been added on after the years of PHP, we haven't got it like Python and stuff built in as standard, this whole auto-loading thing. Well, actually, Python doesn't really have it, but it has a good import system. But, like Java and stuff has this idea of being able to import stuff, working around it and stuff. So, yeah, it's good to see how they get that done. And, Composer is the way to go. But, not PEAR, Composer.
I've got two. Well, I've got one point, another good point about it to make first, and then I've got a little question to ask you about it. Just a slight. Probably the only negative. Well, it's not even necessarily negative. It's just something that I've encountered that makes me a bit sceptical. But you may be able to answer it and obviously quash that. But first of all, the good thing with Packagist is anytime you search for a library, you can see how many people have used it, and I think I've seen one with like 49,000 downloads. So you can use that as a good reassurance.
That's something, and they've got a comment system and stuff, and they're all really just GitHub repositories, so you can go on there and see what the issues are like and stuff, and what people are talking about the library, etc.
Well, that's another good thing. I mean, if you're a developer that uses Git more, I mean, all the links are there anyway, so you can find. It's probably easier to find GitHub repositories through packages.
That's exactly what I do, Matt. To get the reassurance that because again, the amount of GitHub repos people push, each day, it's very hard to find the good stuff, the gold amongst the cruft, and that's not really a saying, but it's a saying. It's a saying now. The gold amongst the cruft is my saying of the day.
What would the cruft be?
The silly billies. So the gold billies. Among the silly billies. So
good old silly billies.
Yeah, absolutely. And so packages kind of gives you that way of being like, oh, what are other people using? And great, they're using this. They seem to be using it fine, and it meets my needs.
Right, so this leads on to an issue that I've discovered with it myself that I haven't really been sure how to deal with. I suppose I should lead off with a question here. All these packages, when you incorporate them into your website, are they designed to just be standalone and not tampered with?
Yes.
Is the idea that you don't touch?
The idea is that they really don't exist for you to play around with. They're never really closed. They're not copied into your version control system and stuff. They're not yours, they're theirs. And the idea is you literally just define what version you want of that. And you can go down to dot releases and stuff and point releases. So you could be really specific. I want 1.2.4 or something. And because what happens is the idea then is that you don't include, you git ignore in a version control sense, or you just ignore the vendor directory when you upload. And then the idea is on your server, then you download the stuff again.
Because that obviously leads on to a problem that I believe loads of people have. Like if they update packages, that can sometimes break things that are in their website. Like if certain things have changed or whatever.
Yeah, so that's when you do.
Like
that's it. Yeah, because you can check. Because so the idea then is that you just use the version. So you wouldn't say like I will get the latest version. You want the stable release. So you can say I want the stable release.
Specify that, can't you? In your
you can say I want the latest, greatest, or I want the stable release, or I want this version because they tag them with just versions. So I want this version. And a nice thing also is the fact that you can also separate between development and production. So in production, you don't really want the PHP unit, all the development, the mocking frameworks, etc. So you can say, when I'm in a development environment, such as on your local machine or in a Vagrant instance, you can just download and install and have all of those packages with PHP unit. But when it goes up to the real site, you may do like a push up to the real site, and then you do a git, a git, like after, what is it called? The git script. Oh, I've completely gone blank now. After you do a command after a git hook. So you then do a git hook that then will do a composer update or a composer install, mainly an update, which then will update all the repository based on your composer file that you've got.
Yeah. Okay. So here comes my issue then. That I have yet to resolve. One of the packages that I've used for the site I've been working on at the moment is DOM PDF.
Okay.
So we've discussed the fact that I had to make PDFs and stuff for the site, and I found this lovely library and went via Packagist and found one for DOM PDF, which was nice, and I've put it in there. But the problem with that is there's config files inside of it which I've had to tweak. And I've had to install fonts into there and stuff like that to get the font that I'm using and stuff. So, where do I go from there then? Is it first of all, is there a way that I can get Composer to ignore that directory, or how would you have gotten around that one?
That's a good one. I mean, is there a way of, because you could do it in your own Bootstrap file, is there a way of specifying where fonts are? Within the actual, when you make an instance of a PDF, then you can say, oh, by the way, the fonts are here. They don't have to be tucked away inside the actual directory itself. Can you specify another directory?
You possibly could, but I mean, it's all kind of in the main config file.
Can you set it up with the instance, not having to use their config files? Can you say create an instance and then set? Because I don't know, maybe their API has the ability to say setting it. Because what you could then do is make very much like the inversion of control, but really just a function in the simplest sense, which creates an instance of DOM PDF, sets up all the stuff that you want it to be boilerplate stuff inside your own code base, so it still doesn't touch their code base, and maybe your font directory is actually stored in your public directory, or so where you've actually got your stuff for that only one individual project. And that way it then allows you to not have to tamper with their configs. If they do make it so you have to always tamper their configs, that's a very bad port to Composer because, as you say, you are tampering, and the only other way then would be either to fork it and then have to deal with updating it yourself, or I mean, that's a really bad way of doing it. I suppose they may have a look if they're in their API, if they have the ability to, on an instance by instance basis, set these configs yourself, and then you'll be able to just do it inside your own code base isolated.
But you'd probably, would you still need a way from inside the repository itself to kind of pick up that outside file, or
no? Because what you would do, so the idea, I think what they normally do in these things is they provide you an instance, say, oh yeah, we'll include all the stuff in your config, just, you know, your base config, that maybe .php file that they have, which is similar to what we were, you know, talking about, which is the return type thing. And also there's ability to override it in instances and say, oh, also add this font path maybe inside the instance where you create the new DOM PDF.
Yeah, what the new object.
Object, and by an object basis, and you could then abstract that and then put that into its own function, and, you know, make that kind of dependency injection thing where it injects all this stuff, you know, saying it has to do these things before I return that object. And that way, it does seem a bit overboard in the sense, you know, you're doing a lot more work, but then it's also isolating it, because then you know for a fact that you're not touching their project that you don't want to touch.
I guess it kind of fixes the issue, but doesn't address the problem, does it?
It's because the problem with it is that they've done a bad port of it. I mean, because that's the thing, a lot of people are just porting stuff that they've made before, because it's hard to say, because the configs and stuff, you know, they are specific to every project has their own way of doing configs. I mean, like Laravel, you have to start off with this Laravel bootstrap, like a skeleton, like type thing, because it needs all the stuff to set up the configs for it to load up its own repositories with composers and stuff. But yeah, I think maybe the ideal thing would be if they could just say in their thing, you know, create an instance with this config, and you're able to supply a config specific, you know, for that instance, and that way then I mean, have a check and see if their API does that, but it could be, again, this is the trouble, because people just port things, and it's this whole idea of, oh, there's a brand new shiny framework, let's not even make something, let's just make a version that works with this. And, you know, like DOM PDF, they made versions with Laravel, they made versions that work with Coconut, and now they're making a version that's composified. And when you composify something, in quotes, you know, you really have to care about, because now that's going to be used in a lot of other projects, because of all these frameworks now, from Zen to Symfony to Cake PHP, I think, is doing it. Yee's now going to be using Composer. So, you know, a lot of effort and work is going into using Composer as the standard way of dependency management, and it's the right way to do it. And it's kind of, as you say, like the limitations of, well, you know, the configs that were in there, I can't use them, I'm going to have to go outside and kind of work around it. But the ability to then say, well, it doesn't matter what version I can just download that again, is a great thing.
Yeah, but so there definitely isn't anything you can do in your composer.json to
there's
every time you
specific.
Composer update to ignore it.
That's it. There's nothing. Well, composer update.ignore. I suppose you
like
could
a composer ignore something like that.
Ignore.
Would be nice.
So you mean don't actually include that library that you've already got in there.
So basically, I'd composer install it in the first instance to get the package actually into my project. But then, if like in this case, I've had to make some changes to those files.
Right.
But I now want to put some new packages in. But I don't want anything to change in that one. So what you could do
is you could keep it in the vendor directory, or actually, in fact, what you probably could do is a bit naughty. You could keep it. Don't keep it in the vendor directory. You could move it out. You could move it out of the vendor directory and have your own version of it now. Remove it from your composer file, but you can then also just do the auto load. So you can actually do an autoload saying, you know, like in Laravel, you can say autoload all my models. You could say autoload this. So it would still use the actual composer thing, but you could then have to check that in. So you're going to have to check that in, and that code now belongs to you instead of theirs. But I would go down the route of seeing if you can do it on an instance by instance thing, and then maybe doing like an IOC thing where now to return an object instance. See if that helps at all. Yeah,
all right. I'll have to give that a bash, I think.
A bash? That's a good segue, sir. What a segue!
I was just going to have a quick look over the email. We got a nice email in from a guy last week, didn't we? Which I've got.
Really sorry, but can I just quickly, before we do that, just go through some links I've got before I forget them?
Oh, of course. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, go for it.
So one link I've got that I don't know if you've been on before is CodeDrops.
No, haven't heard of that.
Right, well, I'll send it to you in Skype. Just have a quick look. Me and Mick We were on Skype on Saturday, meant to be doing some work he was, and I was just sending him stuff on here. And this is literally just like it's like show and tell of awesome stuff these people can do using CSS, JavaScript, and HTML5.
Oh, nice.
And it's amazing stuff, and it makes you think. It shows you the divide between now that, in a couple of years, you won't be able to say you're just a web developer. You'll have to say, I'm a web, front-end developer, I'm a back-end developer, specialising in these certain things, because the skills that these people have to be able to firstly even design something like this. I mean, someone else could design this, but to code this itself, you're going to need to know all the CSS3 stuff, you're going to need to use the HTML5 stuff. So, it shows you that there's so many fields inside of this web game now that you can go into, which is quite exciting.
This is fantastic.
It's very cool, and
you get some cool ideas on there, can't you?
You can, and I mean the code, and the great thing they got it perfectly done. Where literally you view the example, you view their source, and it's all the source, all uncompressed. You can see, so they know for a fact that you're going to want to look at the source and see it. Have a good old, little gander at it to enjoy it and stuff, which is, a great thing.
Yeah.
And secondly, is I wanted to make some GIFs. I just wanted to make some GIFs for. There was like a funny little video that I wanted to make into a GIF format, and I was looking online.
What did you use to make? Oh, this we're probably getting onto.
Yeah, so the next thing is GIF Rocket, and it's a typical Mac app where it's just beautiful website, and then also the application. Because if you go to the website, it's such a simple, sexy website, and then also the actual application itself is just exactly the same as the website, where it's so simple. You drag the video you want on, you say what quality you want, and it does it all for you. And it's one of those things where it's just like, this is what an app should be, nice and simple. And finally, is CodeKit. Now, we did
Fraser's big.
Yeah, he has indeed, but there's a new version out.
Is this something? This is something you use in the browser, is it?
No, this is outside the browser, and it allows you to have a GUI interface to stuff like your CoffeeScript, your Sass, your Stylus, your Jade, your Markdown, blah blah blah, and compressing and stuff. But there's version 2 now out, and I haven't had a chance to play it, but it looks very very good. The guy on it's updated it a lot, made a lot of new cool stuff on with it. The one thing that very interests me a lot is the Bower support. Now, I don't know if you've heard of Bower.
That's is that another kind of package manager, or is it a workflow thingy for JavaScript workflow or package manager thing?
So it's a dependency manager for the front end. Which is about time, because again, we're doing this all in the front
like
end.
jQuery and bits and bobs.
Yeah, jQuery, all the plugin stuff. No copy. I mean, how many times do you still copy and paste plugins into a directory and use that? We shouldn't have to do that. It should again still be. It should be Git unified, and everything should be a package. Well, my opinion. And Bower is produced by Twitter, and this provides a very nice front end to it, which allows you then. It says on their website, install over 6,000 components with a single click. From Bootstrap to jQuery to Zerb Foundation. So it literally allows you then to install these things, using a package manager instead, which then allows you to produce a file that then you can simply just, when you're on the server, install that way. And it gives you the ability to update. Because I don't know if you're like me. I mean, I'm using still jQuery 1.7 on some sites because I haven't bothered to update it. Maybe I should. Do you know what I mean? And it would be easier if I had this ability to say, whack it up, download now the latest version of thing. Because I've got, my version that I've just copied when I downloaded it that first time. Bower allows you to do it, actually using a package manager, which is what we do in the back end all the time, but now in the front end too.
Cool. So is this recommended over using CDNs then? Or,
no.
So instead of? Or?
Well, it's hard because CDNs for stuff like, jQuery and stuff's great. But and if you can't really find, I typically only use a CDN for jQuery and maybe Bootstrap, but to be honest, I use it just for that. Stuff that's specific to your site. You should always actually have it front. I think I did an article a couple of weeks ago where have it all in locally, because if you're developing and stuff, you need it locally. And then it's at the front end where you then say, try and get this version of the CDN. If it's that the CDN's got it, else use my local copy instead. Yeah, so that's pretty much all the picks I've got for this week. How about yourself then, Lee?
I haven't come across any picks per se because I haven't kind of been needing to do anything like that. One kind of thing that I've been messing around with a few new ideas this week in sort of PHP things that I haven't necessarily used before, like a few error bits, like error reporting, setting up error logs and stuff.
Yeah, because I think we spoke about that last week actually.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I was going to talk a bit about that tonight, but we've got an email here from this guy, Sami Leitinen from Finland. That's so cool to get an email in from Finland.
I know. I can't believe.
you.
I want to say thank you to all the feedback we've got, and it's all been positive, and it's all awesome, and I can't believe people actually listen to us. And if we help anyone, that's great, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, just to read a little bit of his email. First of all, as a humble listener, a big fan of the show, I demand Ed's minus points from episode. It was episode 13. Oh, yeah, you were right. So you get your bonus points back, Ed. And then it says, secondly, you guys have asked for ideas and suggestions for future shows. So one that's probably worth some discussion is exceptions in OOP and general error handling. So I've good news for you there. I mean, that's something that I'd quite like to take under my wing. Certainly, maybe do a whole show on that in a couple of weeks' time. I've had to implement some new stuff that I haven't done before anyway. But I've been doing a lot of research on this area. So hopefully, like in a couple of weeks, I can put a pretty nice show together on that stuff, because it's surprising how interesting and the subject error handling is actually, and there's so many different ways of doing it.
Well, I'm sure, I don't know if you're like me, but I deal with errors a lot during the day. More errors than I do actually working code. So yeah, it's good to get an understanding, and I'm really looking forward to penciling that in, and getting a show under our belt on that. That'd be awesome.
So I'm not going to say anything about that at the moment, but I mean,
we'll have to wait and see.
The show, I think we'll probably do our framework one next, and then maybe chat with the designer. But certainly within the next 2 or 3 shows.
We'll do it in the near future. We always seem to fail. Anything we big up, we plan, seems to go to pot. So
the funny thing, when we get asked, when we ask for suggestions, then we get suggestions in. The suggestions are always great, but they're not kind of stuff that you can answer quickly, and it's quite cool. Like they've taken the time out to mention these things they want to hear about. So it's only fair that we try and put together a full-on show for them.
Absolutely.
So hopefully that'll all be fine. But other than that, what have I been learning about? I've been doing a few more tutorials, ironically, about command line stuff. And we've had a guy.
Did you have a bash at that?
I did. I had a bat. It really brought me out of my shell.
Did you seashell the she-shell? I can't remember that. Oh, what is that? The seashell
Yeah, yes.
She sells she-shells at the she-shore. Okay, we're going to ignore that one.
Yeah, we were going to cut that one out, I would have thought.
No, never.
So I mean, I'm trying to kind of implement this whole thing at the moment where I've terrible habit of taking my work home with me and kind of doing stuff.
The developer bug, isn't it?
And what that does is, although it obviously keeps your workflow going well, it kind of puts a halt on learning new things. So literally from this week, I've been trying to turn over a new leaf on that. So I've started looking at a few new PHP things that I hadn't really been looking at before, like exceptions. Funnily enough, that's something I'd already started looking at before we'd got the email. So I mean, that's an interesting subject, as we say. Dependency injection and stuff like that. That's another term that I'd had banded around, but I'd never really examined it. I thought a dependency injection was again to do with things like using Packagist and Composer and stuff, but it's just essentially making using your classes more effectively, isn't it?
It literally is injecting the dependencies that your classes require, so you don't have this, because it's the idea of the OO principle of loose coupling and high cohesion. Loose coupling meaning these things aren't coupled together, and high cohesion meaning the stuff that's in these classes is only relevant to those classes. Yeah,
exactly. It's an interesting issue, but no, I mean I haven't got anything new from that point of view. But I'm going to hopefully this is probably the part of the show I always contribute to least, and you guys come up with all these new exciting things that you found. So I want to kind of jump on.
I don't know whether that makes us sad. I think it makes us more sad though. It's like you actually probably do more work during the day if we were able to find all these things. Go with that. Just go with that. That would be the
one of the biggest things, like as a developer, is trying to allocate time effectively, isn't it? And what am I doing when am I working? Especially if you've got more than one site on the go, how do you manage your time to make sure you're working on allocating a good amount of time to this, and working through your to-do list rather than staying focused on one thing and then you get a list of other things piling up. And it's time management is a very important part of it, I think. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole I don't know if a couple of years ago there was this big thing, Merlin Man. I don't know if 43 folders guy, Merlin Man. Do you know? MANN like me, but he's not related anyway. But he.
Merlin Man.
Merlin Man. He's a very cool guy. He dealt with these problems like Back to Work is a podcast on the 5x5 network, and it's really good. And he with the idea of GTD, which is get things done. And there's like this philosophy, you know, getting these things done and allocating time well and everything. I always seem to fail miserably at it though, because as you say, I go off on a tangent. Work, you know, I mean, you have a problem, you're going to be up there until 1 or 2 in the morning. Actually, screw that, probably early morning in my case with the freelance stuff, trying to solve it because you just want to get it done, and
time just disappears. Time becomes irrelevant.
Oh, it does. It really does. Especially if working freelance, I find it's worse because obviously, you haven't got the working day. You've got just work, and that's it, really.
Yeah, one thing I have started doing is making sure on my lunch break I'm getting out of the office for an hour and I'm walking 3 miles a day.
I saw that on Facebook. That's cool, like, because you've got a little app, because that's what I want to see start doing. But it's a BlackBerry app, which is how are you enjoying your BlackBerry still?
That notification should never have seen the light of day.
I
didn't even realise. Well, I didn't even realise it was going to post to Facebook. I've downloaded an app onto my.
Well, it was 10 miles, wasn't it? You did 10 miles in an hour. They don't know.
No.
What are you doing? What are you doing? I could have.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, big. Yeah. No, it was
10 miles in under an hour.
But then suddenly I had a Facebook notification with someone telling me that power walking is for girls, and I was like, "What?" And I didn't even realise that it had posted to Facebook.
Is it one? See, now that's actually bad. System design, software design. They should alert you, saying, "Are you sure you want us to post this to Twitter?" Or an opt-in thing instead of this opt-out type.
Yeah, well, it gave me the option to log into it using my Facebook credentials, but I guess I should have guessed.
Well, and then what they do is they always ask when they say, "It's like, oh, give us access to everything." Even though they don't need it, it's like their office. Like, oh yeah, we need to read your email. We need to read your messages. We need to read your wall posts. We need to send wall posts. It's like, that's a little scary.
It's scary, and so I finally I switched that setting off. But yeah, I definitely enjoy getting out, doing a bit of walking during my lunch break, just to clear the head. I was starting to get like headaches and stuff from just staring at my screen all day, and now I've shaken that off and stuff. It really breaks your day up nicely.
Yeah, completely agree there, sir.
Any
exercise,
make sure you get away.
A break away from the VDU. VDUs aren't good for you. Neither is sitting on your behind all day.
No, exactly.
Though it's quite fun, programming it. Yeah, getting out, seeing the real world, seeing RL, as they say. I mean, the first thing. Thank you again for the recommendation. The request.
Martin Masson on Twitter.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
We'd definitely go through a bit of command line stuff. I mean, just a gentle introduction and stuff. I mean, yeah, the command line is quite an interesting little thing because, well, I mean, to put it so back in the day, you didn't even have a VDU. So, you would just literally have punch cards and stuff like that. So you wouldn't have any output in our sense, being actually visually see something instantly. Then we did get text-based terminals, so you're able to have text. And now what we all see, though, is GUI and, real monitors. So we can actually see, pretty pictures, icons to click on and stuff. We've got our mouse, we've got our keyboard, and, we can drag things around. We've got our word processors that actually look like a page and stuff. But a lot of programmers, we kind of go through this thing where, well, now the GUI, it is very effective in certain cases, but actually going back to the command line and using just a terminal, a text, just text input is far more efficient and effective for some of the tasks that we do as programmers. It's quite interesting because the terminology gets mixed around and stuff. I mean, what do you call your command line? When you say, I'm going to open up, what would you say you'd open up? Like,
you asking me this?
Yeah. What would you name it?
Terminal. Now I'm on Mac.
On the Mac, exactly. But then you've got your command prompt when you're on, the terminology gets a bit confusing because, so a terminal window is actually what we use like on a Mac or even on actually a Windows box. And that is just a text window inside of our GUI. If you say a console, though, that means it's actually the entire screen is just your text. That's for like pros. I mean, if you really, so pros are people just maybe with servers and stuff, which is, you don't want to have the overhead of a GUI. You don't want to have to GUI because, why, especially in Linux servers and Unix systems and stuff, why do you need a GUI if you can just do it all from the terminal and SSH in?
A lot of people view it the other way around, though, don't they? They think,
no,
but
that's a very true thing, actually, because there is some overhead to learning this stuff, but it pays off, it really does. And,
it does, absolutely.
And I mean, like the Windows world still has like remote desktop, and, with Windows Server and stuff, you still have the graphical user interface, which, is great for, it really is great, but I still think the command line is better, and there are a lot of things that the command line can do. Performing tasks that might be difficult or impossible on the GUI, you can do in a couple of commands using, our actual command line.
It really does speed up workflow. Definitely,
Absolutely.
once you get the hang of it, it's something that I used to shy away from. in my early days thinking, command line stuff is for the super advanced guys and all the high tech programmers that use DOS and all that stuff. But it's not. I mean, all essentially I use it for is to speed up working with my files.
Absolutely. I mean, well, it's funny because you say like DOS, so you've got the Linux world and the Unix world, then you've got the MS-DOS world. Superficially, they look quite similar, but actually the Windows world of the command prompt is very different to what we see as Unix users. The Linux world, the Unix world system command prompt is much more powerful than like you're saying, it's than the Windows world. The Windows world one isn't that powerful, though you can use stuff like PowerShell to make it a bit more. And there's one thing because when we were back in through our old workplace and stuff, there was one thing I used because I was so used to now the Unix system and the Unix philosophy and the way it is. There's something called Cygwin. I don't know if you heard of Cygwin, and that kind of gives you the ability to use. They've literally compiled the actual applications that you use in the Unix world and provided you a environment to be able to use your system as if it was like a Unix system, which saved me so much time, allowed me to use it like I would on my Mac. And I definitely recommend if you're in a Windows environment and you want to get actually it's very good to just get a feel for maybe your server and stuff, which is most likely going to be Linux and stuff, is to actually install Cygwin. And we'll put a show note in the show notes, and there's a nice installer. You can install the packages with it throughout the installer. Say I want SSH access, blah blah blah, or I want LS and all this stuff, listing files, and you can get around the ability to not actually have to use Linux, but use the actual commands that you would then need to use inside of your server, but actually on your local desktop.
Yeah, I mean if you're one of those developers that using more than one machine or operating system, try and get something on each computer that kind of works in the same way.
Well, and that actually then pulls onto the fact of dot files.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've got that. I've got like a list of various things. I've got that down at number 8 at the moment. Bash. Well, you mean like your Bash profile and stuff like that?
Well, yeah. So your dot files. Dot files are one of those things where they become, because a lot of people become more emphasised now, and inside of playing around with the command line and stuff and configuring it. Because we're geeks, we love configuring stuff. We love making it personal and everything. Our profile command prompt looks like, what our font we use, etc., and all this, and what our aliases are and functions. So dot files are actually dot files. So the idea is a dot file is really just a configuration file. The name dot file comes from the fact that there's a dot and it's prefixed with a dot, which in the Unix world means it's hidden. It's a hidden file, and it's typically in your home directory that they're stored. And when you load up a shell instance, because there's different types of shells, so there's we'll go into that a little later on. But so you open up your instance, it will load up these configuration files. And you can load up and add some aliases, and aliases are just like names for certain other commands and stuff, like references, like this variable runs this, stuff, and then you can also add, like maybe I want a couple of extra functions, because the actual shell itself inside of, because batch files, which are very in the Windows world, but shell and bash files and stuff inside shell scripts inside of the Linux world is a language in itself. It is just a very similar language to what you'll find in PHP in a sense, with ifs, while blocks, etc. But it's very Unix philosophy where each thing does one thing and you kind of compose them together.
Cool. Should we I've got a couple of, like a kind of a prompt list to kind of discuss things.
Yeah, go for it, man.
So the first thing I've written down here is like, to anyone saying like, why would I want to use that over a GUI? I mean, we've kind of touched over it already. I mean, for me, the main reason is literally, twofold. Well, actually, no, the main reason is the speed of things. For example, like people using FTP to transfer files from a local to a remote server. If you can do that via SSH, which you can connect to an actual online terminal. I don't know what's it called online. It's just kind of the same thing, isn't it?
It's just secure shell. So the idea is that you're logging into the shell, the actual terminal on that machine, similar to RDP in the Windows world, where they give you a GUI back. You're just getting a terminal back. And another thing, I suppose, definitely so it's makes things quicker. It allows you to script things. So I know you can script things, macros and stuff, clicking on buttons and everything, but it allows you to say, well, I've got this task, maybe, because there's one very good example we've got is the fact that on our site, we get the stats and stuff, and the stats is really just a command prompt thing saying, get the file, sort all the IP addresses out, filter them, etc., etc. And all that is on the shell script, and it's just a script that's run every 15 minutes. And that's been programmed. It's not actually using GUI applications, opening them up and doing it that way, which firstly may seem quicker because you're understanding it that way. You're not having to look at all the configuration options and prompt flags and stuff. But when you actually are able then to program these things using command prompts and using the shell and actually those command line applications, it allows you to be more effective, quicker, and it saves on time and it's so much easier.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think it's brilliant using it. To be honest, the main reason I started learning it is when I wanted to learn Git. I mean,
that's a very good point, actually. Yeah,
I mean, that's probably a very that goes hand in hand very well. Like if you want to learn to use the command line, you want to learn how to use Git and use the two together. There's some brilliant tutorials out there.
Yeah, because Git's made by it's very command line centric, and there are GUIs for it. But yeah, as you say, like it's very emphasised on being, especially on GitHub and stuff, to go into the terminal.
It just gets you in the habit of using it, doesn't it? I think. I mean, I've looked at Tower and I've looked at various GUI things for Git, and I didn't really like them. I know that might sound weird, but there's only really a handful of commands that you use on Git, and once you get to know what they are, then you end up using the command line anyway. I mean, this comes back to like the aliases thing that Ed was saying. Like some kind of terminal scripts, or commands can get very long, but you can condense them down into an alias. So you could just say, I don't know, like if you want a CD change directory into a long directory. It's a long path to whichever directory you're trying to get into. You could
your projects folder. I normally have a projects folder. You want to get quickly into that project folder.
Exactly. So you could set up an alias, which literally you say alias projects or something like that, and then you would just put equals and then put your actual shell command like CD, and then the path to your directory and stuff like that. It's so much quicker. So much quicker.
And it's, I mean, as you're saying, like with Git, yeah, because I'm very much now, I use the command line a lot for Git, but there are a couple of things I still use for a GUI, which, again, GUIs have their place. It's stuff like merge conflicts and stuff like that, seeing differences in files. Sometimes it's a bit intimidating seeing it just text-based, and it's nice to have a GUI come up saying, oh, look, this is what it visually looks like. So, it's using both for their strengths, a lot of people will just say, no, I'm using the terminal all the time, the command prompt all the time, but it's kind of weighing out, well, I prefer using, I mean, there are web browsers that are just in the terminal, like Lynx, which is just a text web-based browser, which only displays things in text. But, obviously we want our web, we want to quickly, go see pretty pictures and stuff. So you're going to use a GUI for that. And, but stuff like Twitter, you can easily use through using the command line. Stuff like to-do lists. To-do lists are great in the command line because you're able to add them all, put them in a Git repository, your actual setup, and then set them around the whole, all of these systems. And, everything has a command prompt, really, all computers and stuff, especially like Android devices. Even you can actually emulate this on your iPhone. So, yeah, it's quite cool.
I think possibly SQL. I try and stay away from doing any SQL stuff on the terminal. I like to use like SQL Pro and GUIs for that kind of thing because it
is good to see like that visual representation of what the actual relationships and stuff are.
I'd probably actively discourage using SQL in the terminal in the command prompt. I don't know whether you'd agree with that.
I kind of I mean, like it depends on what you're doing because like I kind of liked it because I for a year I pretty much had to use I kind of learned SQL and just in the terminal and stuff, I've kind of become familiar with it quite a bit.
Yeah.
And but there's a lot of repetitive code and stuff you have to do. But I definitely say designing schemas and stuff, even though you should be doing it on paper first. But then when you do, it's nice to have a GUI, like Navicat and stuff, to be able to visually see what's going on there.
Well, that's the good because you can still use all those commands, but you can actually use them inside of there. So you're not actually, I guess, technically doing anything massively different, but you just, I don't know,
it's just the
feedback's
interface.
a lot nicer.
And I suppose that's another thing, actually, because everything you can do in the terminal, all these things can really be mirrored. It's like, well, I'm copying a file, using a GUI. Well, actually, in the background, it's doing the same thing as what copying on the terminal would have done, and vice versa.
Exactly. Yeah, SSH again. We touched on that. That's something that I've developed in confidence with more and more recently. It's something that used to terrify the living daylights out of me. In fact, you had a pretty bad experience. It just shows how you need to be careful.
Well, that's the terminal. That's how powerful the terminal. Yeah, so the terminal is very powerful, and we had a development box in our old work, and I was SSH in. I mean, it could have happened just locally as well, but just locally on my machine. But I removed star, which means, and also I forcibly and recursively did it, which means I removed everything from a folder. Now, I thought I was in another folder. I thought I was in a child folder, but I wasn't. I was in the root of all our development sites. Fortunately, we have backups. But yeah, and because of, I mean, in literally probably, 6 characters, I removed everything. And in a Linux world, you don't have a recycle bin. So, like in the GUI and stuff, these will provide you with these nice recycle bins and stuff. So they were gone. But luckily we had backups and stuff. But yeah, it shows you the power of using the command line for good and evil.
Yeah,
and sheer dumb, which is what I did.
This probably goes to show that maybe stay away from SSH until you're confident just working locally with things.
Well, I suppose just practicing on your local box, because if you've got Cygwin loaded up, if you've got just your Mac box, just go locally and start playing around trying to list files, sorting files and stuff. There's loads of YouTube videos and stuff, and there's loads of stuff on like NetTuts and stuff, Tutes Plus and etc. for this. So yeah, there's a lot of good material out there for it.
There's a hell of a lot of good material, but just to give one good example of something that I use SSH for, which is definitely useful. Say you want to, like where I work, we use a lot of sites that run off the Yi framework.
The Yi framework. You love Yi.
Yeah, but alongside every time you use Yi, you have like a main framework directory. So rather than having to manually upload all of those every single time and just like drag and dropping them via FTP, what I've done is I've written out a command that I use. I use SSH to get onto our server, and then I just literally use this copy command inside of the SSH server to copy the framework from another place where we already use it to where I need it. And it's literally, I mean, it's thousands of files in there. But rather than like dragging it, like say you only had it in one place and you need to get it to another place, rather than like dragging a copy back to your local server
and then going back to it,
and then waiting for years. If it's thousands of files or something like that, because I've done that before.
Because I think FTP doesn't know. I know that SSH is quite intelligent if you're using the GUIs of it, because that's another thing with SSH. Actually, you can, and I use this. It's called SCP, which is just a secure copy. Which is just their idea is that you can have a GUI. There's also a command prompt of that, but a command line application of it. But there's a GUI for it. But that intelligence says, "Oh, you're still on the same server. I'm going to do that." But I think with FTP, actually, you're right. Yeah, it will download it to your local machine just to upload it to the same machine again, which.
And it's so much faster. It's literally what was taking me. I'd literally I'd log into an FTP account using like FileZilla or something like that, and I'd drag this thing into my local file, and you see like 1,589 files, and you go, oh right, I'll go.
And small files are the worst. Small file, you're better off having a big zip file than small files, because all the overhead of rights permissions on files and stuff. In fact, actually, you're better off just zipping it on your machine. But again, if you're using FTP, it's going to do the same thing where it download it and upload it again. But I mean, I don't know about you. FTP, I'm not really a fan of it anymore. I think it's overhead on a server now. If you've got SCP and you're using that and you're using the shell as secure shell and stuff, it's much better.
Get as well, obviously.
Absolutely. Pushing it up to their repos and stuff, pulling them down, etc. Yeah, you're completely right there.
Because again, from a lower if you're at a lower level point of view, there's nothing. It can be scary transferring files, just dragging and dropping them from local to live.
Absolutely.
You're constantly checking. Oh Christ, am I in the right directory here?
PHP, where it's you're not you're running whatever that the new file, it gets picked up immediately, as long as it's not cached and stuff. So. You can bugger up the index.php file and the front end
exactly.
is just gone.
Most directories have got an index.php file, and it's a whole world of pain. But when you get in the habit of using something like Git, you're literally it's kind of all that worry's taken out of your hands, because
the diff just does the diff for you. And if you do break it, you revert back.
Yep.
Which is the safest thing ever.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what are the kind of there's kind of some basic commands that I guess everyone would use in the initial instance, aren't there? Like make directory, mkdir.
Yep. Yes, you've got make. Example. Yeah, you've got move, mv. You've got ls, which is list. So you list
shows
structure.
All your files.
Shows all your files. You've got stuff like cp, which is copy. You've got stuff like RM, which is remove, which I had a lot of experience. I mean, really, there's a lot of good tutorials online for like these commands and what they do. One thing I would recommend, I think I recommended last time with the PHP manual, is man pages, which is the manual pages. So if you are confused, go into the terminal and just type man, M-A-N, space, and then the command that you want, like ls, and it will come up in the terminal with just a pager, which is just literally all the commands, the command documentation. And there's a lot for all the popular commands. There's a very good documentation. It shows you all the information you can do. But if you do prefer a guide and stuff, YouTube videos, there's many of them, and there's a lot of them because Linux. There's like lots of Linux certifications for like DevOps people. So a lot of people online put on these Linux certifications. If you search for in YouTube like Linux certifications, you can see people have actually put online these like tutorials for how to learn the terminal well, and all these commands.
Yeah, definitely. One other thing, that a term you hear banded around quite a lot, is you watch tutorials and they say, oh, before you do this tutorial, you'll need this, so download it and then add it to your path.
Oh, good.
And quite often,
yes,
people are going like, what the hell's the path? Aren't they?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
Like even just a path to whichever PHP file you're using, little things like that are complicated.
So what is the path, sir?
The path, it goes in your bash profile. Well, from my experience, it does anyway.
Yeah,
so
yep.
Basically, it's a line of code at the top of your bash profile, which basically anytime, sometimes it gets updated dynamically, actually, doesn't it? But it basically, anytime you download something that you want to use onto your computer needs to know where it's going to find it.
Yep.
And especially if it's installed globally. So like Composer, for example, you'd install that globally, and then you have to add it to. I don't know if it goes in. Where does Composer go? It doesn't go in.
So it's a path also, and then you move it to your user local. It's quite interesting because there is path. So there's path on both on the Windows boxes and in the Unix world, and they both do the same thing. Where essentially, as you say that, they're just in the PHP. No, sorry. I'm getting really confused. In the Windows world, it's a semicolon separated list of directories so these are directories that any application in there is going to be globally. When you open up a terminal, you'll be able to access that without having to specify the full URL. And then there's also in the Linux world, it's just a colon space list, and you can update it. You can echo out. In fact, there's a good example. So if you go into your terminal and you type echo out, so you echo and then you do a $path, you'll then be able to see an output of what your current path is. And this is the merged one of what they've provided you, by default in your operating system, and then also stuff you've added, customized yourself. You do this a lot. This is one of the things that virtuem does, which is it adds and dynamically adds stuff to the path. And I do stuff like with RVM, which is the Ruby virtual virtual manager and stuff, version manager. You do that, and it can be confusing, but a typical way of being able to work out where actually an application is to type in which. So you type which, and then you just do a space and then the application, and that will say where actually that file is located. You get this a lot in Homebrew. Brew, which is the the package manager.
Mac package manager.
Yeah, the package manager Mac. There's all these package managers, and that uses the idea of they self-contained each individual of these applications, and then they just add them in the path, which then they use these versions instead of like in the case of I've got my PHP version that's still available to me, which is provided by Mac, the Mac OS X itself, but then I've got a version of PHP that is the version I use 5.5 that is just because it's in my path PHP, the actual directory, it's overrided saying, look, you're going to look in here for the PHP thing. It opens, it says, I've already got PHP, I don't need to use the version that that already available on the Mac OS X.
Yeah. So it's a complex old subject, command line.
It is. I mean, it's good. I think the best thing we could probably get from it is that don't be scared of it.
Just get your hands dirty. Just literally.
Best thing you could do is just to play around. Make a directory, add a couple of files. Maybe even in GUI you may do it, or you could use the command touch. Touch and then the name like hello. Play around, add a couple of directories, remove the directories. And maybe copy the files, move the files. And stuff. And it really is just playing around with it and. Yeah, just getting that feel for it, because once you start getting the feel for it, you'll go to the command line more often than you will like the GUI. I know it doesn't sound believable. I didn't believe this because I was very much a GUI guy with the Windows world. But you go into the command line and you will become obsessed with it because you'll feel more home with it because so many different operating systems use the same Linux Unix style commands and the philosophy. That go into another operating system, you're like, oh, I don't care about what GUI you're using, as long as I've got a command line, I'm fine.
Exactly. I mean, to give some idea of how quick the workflow is or something, just to literally be like, all right, I just need to set up a basic structure for a new website that I'm doing. You could literally open up your terminal, and then maybe like the first thing you'd do, a command that I use quite a lot is pwd, present working directory.
Yep.
And then that'll tell you where you are at the moment. And then say like for a Mac, I need to get into my htdocs folder. So here, shall I literally just do a quick walkthrough?
Go for it, man,
It'll come out online. So yeah, so it's telling me I'm in my home directory at the moment. So what I need to do is I need to change directories into my htdocs directory. So the path to that. So all I'm literally doing is I'm typing cd / applications / again MAMP in capital letters, because this is the path. And what you'll actually find if you start typing in like the first few letters of any given path that you're in, it actually guesses the rest of it for you. So like I typed in MA there and it guessed the rest of MAMP as well. So
yeah, if you press tab, isn't it? If you press tab, it will try
tab.
and autocomplete it.
Exactly. So yeah, so I've got cd / applications / MAMP / htdocs. Bang, enter. I'm now in my htdocs folder, and then all I would literally do from there, so I'm going to make a directory, so I'm going to say mkdir, that's the make directory function, and then we just give it a name, so we say new website.
I'm disappointed you didn't say cheese. I am disappointed.
Oh, terribly sorry about that. Well, I'll tell you what, Ed, shall I remove that
yes,
one?
Please do. Please do.
Okay.
I like this.
So all I'm going to do there, I've now made this directory that I need to get rid of. I'm going to use rm, and then just literally type in the name of my directory, which was new website. Bish bash bosh. Delete out the fact that I just said bish bash bosh. I've never said that in my life. And now that's gone. So
Has it got, because you need to do rm-r, I think,
rm-r. Yes, I do. Sorry, I thought you only needed to do that if it actually had files inside of it. See, I'm learning as well.
The more you know, eh?
Yeah, okay. RM.
And then in there you can just you can use the word touch index.html and it will make a blank file which is your index.html page and stuff like that.
Exactly, right. So we're back to square one. Sorry, it took me a while to delete that for some stupid reason. Right, so I'm going to make a directory called cheese. There we go.
Yeah.
So cheese directory has been made. So now what I need to do is I need to create some files and folders inside of that directory. So I need to change directory into my cheese website. So I'm going to put cd cheese. And now I'm inside of there. So what do I need first of all? I need an index file. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type touch index.php. That will create me an index file. Now what do I need? I need an assets directory, or let's even break it down beyond that. No, all I need is an images directory and a CSS directory. So there you go. All I'm going to do again is type mkdir CSS mkdir images. And there we go, and that's basically it. So even with a bit of a blunder, not being able to delete all that stuff, I've created a website directory with an index file and a directory called CSS and images inside of it in, I don't know, quite a short space of time. But obviously, without the mistake, it would have been quicker.
No, that sounds perfect, man.
Online demonstrations always go wrong, don't they?
Oh, all the time, sir. I mean, actually, it's interesting because because again, this is the power of the actual terminal. Is you could, so if you're are you in the root directory now of cheese?
I am indeed.
If you type mkdir, so you're going to make a directory.
Yeah.
You're going to do a space -p, which means whatever I'm going to type here, I want you to create all the folders leading up to this. If you do space assets and then /.
Yeah.
And then if you do a curly bracket, open a curly bracket up.
Yeah.
And you type CSS, and then maybe dash, then a comma image, comma JS. So you want an asset CSS file and a image, folder, and you close off your curly bracket and click enter.
Yeah.
You should now have an assets folder, and what they've actually done is been able to expand it to say, I want an assets folder that has CSS. I want an assets in the assets folder that has CSS, image, and JS, all in one command.
There you go. I've learned something tonight. That's an even quicker way. So that's just an example, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can just quickly get in these commands, and it's working out the flags and stuff that you can use in this, because -p then says the assets folder doesn't exist. So I can't create CSS without creating an assets folder already. So they will create the assets folder, then do what we need to do. And then you could do this whole idea of curly brackets, which then allow you to quickly, without having to duplicate code. It's all about making things quicker, using less text typing. And you think about that, I mean, in that command, you did more work. How much quicker is that than going to the GUI and actually creating those folders yourself?
Yeah, all you're doing is you have to navigate your way through your folders anyway. Whether you've
Absolutely.
got
And you can and then you can write a command. You know, you can alias that, you can make a function out of that, you can script it, and then you're able to make this and say bootstrap, you know, or maybe, you know, boilerplate, and it will literally create these for you, you know, automatically. So, you know, make these macros, you know, that you could then, I mean, the GUI, maybe there are programs, actually I know there are programs that you can do GUI stuff with, but this is so much easier and scriptable, and yeah, the best way really.
Yeah. Cool. I reckon we must be approaching time.
I think we have. This is actually going to be our longest podcast, I think, which is good because the funny thing is the fact that it's only two of us. It's been a great podcast, though, man. It's been great talking to you.
I don't know. There's going to be a few bits I think I want chopped out of it.
Right, so well, there's a couple that we did, but I think that's all right. So anyway, no, I mean, hopefully I think we'll have a full pod next week, and maybe actually Justin will be on, which would be quite good.
That'd be good. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
One comment I just want to make. There's a nice guy tonight that sent me a message named Ashwin on Twitter. He sent me a suggestion saying that he'd love to hear about building a PHP backend with an existing HTML CMS template. So I replied to him saying, you know, this is an example earlier on of that's probably a show's worth, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. I mean, it's really good that we've got all this and we can work through it and stuff. And we will get to it all, promise, because we're not going away. We love doing this, and we're really glad that people enjoy listening to us. So, yeah. It's awesome. And yeah, all have a good week. And
you know, apologies if it's been a bit less understandable tonight than normal ones. It's not the easiest of jobs doing it.
It's
just
the
two heads,
it's just me and Lou.
You know, we've done the best we can. So hopefully you've enjoyed listening tonight, and keep listening, and we'll be here next week.
All right then, see you later, guys.
All the best, guys. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to 3 Devs and a Maybe. You can contact us at contact@3devsandamaybe.com or follow us on Twitter at 3 Devs and a Maybe.